Brought to you by Curious Brandland. So this video is a follow-up to a video I did on binary fission and budding. And this is a PowerPoint, and this is a resource for my students. And so one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you where to find this, because I'm not going to pause for you to write it down. But this is the first set of notes. So let's go to Blackboard and see where this would be. And again, course materials. It'd be the second or third quarter, because we started in one quarter, we're finishing another. When you're in this folder, scroll all the way down to, we just did the labs, the quiz, and after the mitosis lab, you have asexual reproduction before the cancer notes. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and talk about go through these notes and give you some examples. Again, this is a follow-up to a video that started with talking about binary fission, and we used this example here. We talked about binary fission and budding. And I want to make one correction. In that other video, there was a typo. Identical was spelled wrong. And let's go ahead and look at this question before we do the purple PowerPoint. You know, cells grow, they divide, they repair. We're talking about a form of producing more offspring, and that's what asexual reproduction is. Now, we're going to go over all the examples that we see in different organisms from different kingdoms on our planet. So let's go ahead and jump right to it. And so if you need to copy this down, I recommend using the PowerPoint, not trying to watch it through the video. And let's go ahead and here's our list. Now, the next couple slides, what I want you to recognize is these are the types of asexual reproduction. What organism does it? The expectation on a future quiz or test is that we will give you a scenario and we expect you to say, oh, that's a plant doing vegetative propagation, or that's a bacteria, or something. So let's go ahead and go through each one. Feel free to pause as you go along, but I recommend going to the PowerPoint on Blackboard and bring through this. So what's important here is vegetative propagation is when a plant can make a copy of itself. And it does it not like, say, a piece falls off. It's the root, the stem, or leaves can grow, and they're identical. That is going to be the theme for all of this. All right? So that's the theme. So cells make exact copies. How they make those exact copies in various variations is what we're looking at. We've already talked about growth and development, standard mitosis, but now we're under the realm of asexual reproduction. So binary fission is our second one. Okay? And what I want my students to know is we talked about binary fission when we did this. And I made another video where you can watch where we go through a number of this, so I'm not going to do that here. But let's go back to let's go to here. Other examples. So bacteria, as you can see in this little animation here. And there are some eukaryotic organisms, which means they have membrane-bound organelles that do binary fission. So binary, bi stands for two, and fission stands for division. So a lot of prokaryotes, they divide equally. All right. Well, eukaryotes, special single unicellular organisms, paramecium, euglena, the kingdom Protista, all right, and they'll make a genetic identical copy, and that's again binary fission. So we've got prokaryote, eukaryote. Let's move on. Budding. Went too far. All right, now I like to actually say budding happens in yeast. In animals, there's some small aquatic, like this hydra, where it branches off, and they call that budding. But the main one that I want my students to recognize is this, which I mentioned in a previous video with this typo. This is standard division. Each one of these cells produces identical cells, genetically identical, half the cytoplasm. But in budding, we have unequal cytokinesis, meaning the cells are identical, but they have different volumes of cytoplasm. All right? And so let's go ahead and go back to here. Regeneration is our next option. This happens with some animals that can actually grow a new part. So that's regeneration, like a salamander that grows a new tail, crabs that will grow a new limb. You look over here, planaria will grow new parts, starfish or sea stars. Right? growing a whole other organism or growing a part back. Unfortunately, that doesn't happen with primates or most of your vertebrates, even though a salamander is a vertebrate. But there we go. All right, the last one is called sporulation, and this is the one that people were afraid of. Well, they could be afraid of all of them, but fungi have a tendency to mass produce themselves by releasing these clones of themselves. You see it with bread mold. Some plants, like the fern, will do it. The seedless plants can also do sporulation. Moss and fern will do that. So let's do this. Let's look at a couple scenarios. Let's call this the practice round. We'll close this video. So here's what is the name of the process that's happening. All right, these are actually microscopic shots of plants doing vegetative propagation. Here's spores. This is sporulation. If you see a fungus, you know it's sporulation. There's another fungus. This is bread mold. See the sporangia. They actually call it sporangia. There's spores inside. Each one of these little clusters is going to release, and it will grow into a whole other organism, and it is, again, genetically identical to the original source. Notice I'm saying source because they're multicellular. So more spores. So, all right, here's one. Unequal sharing of the cytoplasm. This cell and this cell are genetically identical, but this is smaller. It has less volume of cytoplasm. It's budding. Here's budding in an animal, the hydra. Budding. Okay. A plant growing off offshoots. This is vegetative propagation. Vegetative propagation. Here's some more examples. Some people do grafting, where they'll take something apart, and if this grows from original source, this is identical to the source. So it's more complex talking about asexual reproduction. It's not like bacteria making a copy. They can double their population in 20 minutes, but this is multicellular organisms being able to make clones of themselves. What nature does in the lab, we've been trying. What nature does, we try to do in the lab. We nowhere to their success. Vegetative propagation. This is a good one because you see on the surface, you walk and see these three plants, you think they're different, but they're identical. And if you look and you see the offshoot, vegetative propagation, there we go. Some animals with regeneration. All right, this is a fern and sporulation. All right, that should be regeneration. This is underneath. This is called a sorus or sori. These are clusters of spores underneath the leaf of a fern. This is a zoom in on that. All right, just more pictures of that. Now let's look at this animation. This is binary fission. So I think I've covered all of the list. Binary fission. One of the reasons why you want to take your antibiotics if you're on it, and you stop after 3 days when you're supposed to take 5 days, bacteria double their population in 20 minutes, and then you end up being worse off than you are. And your micro ecosystem is evolution in action. These bacteria that survive are now resistant to that antibiotic potentially. This is binary fission if it was a paramecium. So that's binary fission prokaryote, binary fission eukaryote. And that's all right. So this is binary fission for eukaryote. This is a euglena. All right. So that's pretty much it. And that's our little video on asexual reproduction. Brought to you by Curious Marine Lab.